Hey everybody, it's Brant and I'm back with another In My Head video. And this is I'm just going to go ahead and call it what I want to call it. This is a Fixing the Kiss albums video. So I'd had that video where I talked about people getting upset about me calling it Fixing the Kiss albums. Um, that's basically what it is. If I was a producer, what would I do to fix an album? What would I do to improve it? And sometimes there's a lot of improvements that needs to be done. Sometimes there's not a lot of improvements that needs to be done. But I don't think the perfect Kiss album exists. I think even the best Kiss album still has some flaws that can be not maybe just pointed out for the sake of pointing them out, but just pointing out and saying what could have been done better. That's the whole process and thought process of this video. And it's just give an excuse to go through all the Kiss albums again. You
Yeah.
guys keep asking how many, when are you going to review Kiss albums again? When are you going to go through Kiss albums again? And this is the best way I figured out to go through it the third time, all the way through the Kiss albums again. And so today I have my good buddy, John Be Good, with me. And he's a huge Peter Criss fan. And I'll let him talk here in just a minute about where you can find him on social media. And then we're just going to get into talking about Peter and talking about his album, his 1978 solo album, and see what we would do to improve it if we were producers in place of Vinnie Poncha. So, John, how you been doing, man? It's been a while since I've had you in a video.
Good, good. Just surviving the heat down here in New York. We're not used to 90-degree weather, and it's like 90-degree humidity too at the same time. So it was just kicking my butt today. But I'm doing good. Doing good. Glad to be on this. Thanks for asking me.
So, where can people find you at on social media out there on the internet? Where can people find you if they want to see what you do, the content that you do?
Best way to find me, just go on YouTube and just type in. It's kind of funny because my handle is, if you type in John Be Good, you're going to get Michael J. Fox doing Back to the Future's John Be Good.
Right.
So the best thing to do is just type in, this is strange, but type in Peter Criss covers, and I'm going to come up right like that. You could try John Be Good. I think now, since I've been on so long, I think you can find me that way. But
Sometimes they can put channel, because if you put in My Head, there's apparently songs named In My Head and stuff like that. And I've been around long enough that I do come up near the top. But if somebody searches In My Head channel, they can generally find me. And you also have a very awesome Instagram page.
Yep, got the Instagram. I post pretty much every day, every other day. So, and just do some fun stuff on there too. So.
Okay. Well, I'll have those links down in the description. If everybody wants to check John out, please do go to his YouTube and give him a subscription, and go to his Instagram and check him out. So, wanted to get into Peter Criss, his solo album. First, get into a little bit of our personal history with it before we get into talking about the overall production and the tracks and whatnot. So, how old were you when you first discovered the Peter Criss 1978 solo album?
Okay. I'll have to hold this up for the story. Hold on. My brother had Ace, Paul, and Gene's solo album when I was 3 or 4 years old. 4 years old, and then I'm not going to tell the story again. But my brother, he was part of the CYO, Christian Youth Organization. He had a bonfire and burned all the Kiss records. I Saved Love Gun. But he never had Peter Criss. And I always was bugging him when I was a kid. I want to hear Peter's. I want to hear Peter's. And my brother, I think, heard something like, it's not very good. So he didn't buy it. So the first time I heard this was when I bought this album. This is, if you can see it, it's a German. And I ordered this with my own money when I was 9 years old, from like a back of a circus magazine, because you couldn't get it anywhere where I lived. I mean, you couldn't find the Peter Criss solo album in 1983 or 1984 in the record store. So I ordered it online, or ordered it from a magazine, a send-away, and it took about 2 months to get this thing. And I wasn't even expecting. I had no idea what the German thing was back then. But I still have it. It's beat up, but I love it. It's the first record I ever bought. And I put that needle on, And probably like any other kid, because I was familiar with Love Gun and Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over. And yeah, when I dropped the needle, I was like, wait a second. You know what I did? I took the record off just to make sure that it said Peter Criss on the label. And I'm like, yeah, that's Peter Criss. And it was, it grew on me. At first, I didn't like it as much, but it grew on me really quickly. Actually, I started liking it probably after the fourth listen. I mean, you just got to listen to it. I mean, it's not a Kiss record. I mean, it's been said 1,000 times. So,
well, you have to listen to all 4 Kiss albums, the solo albums, individually. They're solo albums. They are. They called them the Kiss albums. I think that's what they actually called them. Get the Kiss albums. But they're solo albums. They were done independently of each other. And so you have to look at them. You can't really compare them to Kiss. And I don't really think it's fair to compare them to each other. Like a lot of times, we do it all the time. We compare Aces and Pauls, and we compare Gene and Peters, and we compare how good Aces and Pauls are and how bad Gene and Peters are. But they're all like fingerprints on your hand. They're all individualistic, and they all have their own characteristics. And they were all.
It just so happens that Paul and Ace have more of the Kiss sound, where Gene and Peter, maybe they have different backgrounds, and that's it's what makes them all good. I mean, it just makes them. Why would you want all 4 albums to sound the same?
Yeah. I mean, some people, why would you want all 4 albums to sound the same? And I like that fact. My first experience to Peter Criss, and it's okay if you repeat anything, like anything that we've said in the past on my channel or anything, because we never know. With me having over 500 videos, you never know when you're going to run into somebody that's never seen you before. So it's okay to repeat stories, but I do it all the time. My first exposure to the solo albums was Peter Criss's was when they came out. And I went and bought all 4 solo albums the day that they came out. I had the bag and everything. And the first solo album I listened to was Peter's, because I was a Peter Criss guy and I was a drummer, and and Peter Criss was my dude. And I liked all the members of Kiss, but I really liked Peter. And I remember thinking, wow, this is different at age, 9. I remember thinking this is different. But I remember liking it. There were some songs on it that I didn't like that I had to appreciate as I got older. But I found songs on it that I liked all the way back then. And we'll talk about those as I go through. But I remember at the time when I was little, I probably liked Peter's the best just because it was Peter. And I liked Paul's and I liked Ace's, but the one that I really didn't like when I was a kid was Gene's. I really just could not get into Gene's. But that's another story for another day. So yeah, I heard it when I was 9 years old, the very first time, right after it came out. And I was turning around. I was going to try to get the only version of Peter's album that I have other than the box set is the picture disc. I don't own my original anymore, so I was going to show that off, but it's like right directly behind me, so I can't get to it. So talking a little bit about this solo album before we get into it, it was released on September 18th, along with the other 3 Kiss albums. In 1978, it was recorded April to July on 1978, which disproves that whole rumor that Kiss wanted to break up after they did the Magic Mountain movie, The Phantom of the Park. But some of the members of Kiss was recording their albums as early as April. So
yeah, I've heard that Peter was, and Paul.
Yeah, they were recording solo albums relatively early because it was in there that they could do solo albums in the contract, that 4 solo albums contracted as 2 full albums. So they could achieve 2 albums in their contract by putting out 4 solo albums. So it was recorded April to July. It was produced by Vinnie Poncia, and most songs were written by Stan Pendridge and Peter. and most of them date back to 1971, pre-Kiss band Lips. Songs like "I'm Gonna Love You," "Don't You Let Me Down." That's the kind of sugar Papa likes, and "Hooked on Rock and Roll." Um, Two singles were released: "You Matter to Me," "Don't You Let Me Down," and with both B-sides were "Hooked on Rock and Roll." Yeah, I saw you have one of those singles. How
Yeah.
weird is it that it's weird single selection. They released the first single they released was "You Matter to Me," which is a good song,
Yeah.
and they released "Don't You Let Me Down." He's the only solo album that got two single releases.
Yeah.
But
How did that happen? I know why it kind of probably happened because "You Matter to Me" didn't take off. But did "Hold Me, Touch Me" take off for Paul? Why didn't they release another one from him?
no,
Just
no, it
weird.
didn't. But I just think it's weird that "Hooked on Rock and Roll" is the B side for both singles.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. It
It
is.
is, and that's really weird that they didn't do another single. Um, but before we get into talking about the rest of the album, I wanted to have a little short discussion. The two singles released, "You Matter to Me" and "Don't You Let Me Down," with the B-side "Hooked on Rock and Roll." What songs do you think on the album would have been better released as like the first single? What do you
Um,
think they should have released?
I think the first single they should have released is "I Can't Stop the Rain," and it's just because I think that song could have been so much better produced, and it just shouts single. To me,
Mhm,
I mean, do I think that's as good of a song as Beth? I pretty much think so. I think it is, but that's just my opinion. I
mhm.
would have started off with that. I know probably a lot of people would be like, "You want to release a ballad as the first single?" Paul did it. Didn't work.
But that's what Peter was becoming known
That's what he
for.
was known for. He was known for
I mean,
Beth, Red Like Woman.
he in the beginning he was a rocker, and then in the love from Destroyer to Rock and Roll Over to Love Gun, they had him putting out Hard Luck Woman. Of course, he had Hooligan on Love Gun, but
Right.
they had Beth and Hard Luck Woman. So he was becoming the ballad guy for the band. And I
Yeah.
do agree with that. My other thought was, I think if you were going to go that route, if you're just going to be like, okay, let's see if we can capture, if we can get people interested, because there's a song like Beth. Maybe there's more songs like Beth, or if this is a soft song, there's got to be some hard songs on there too, some rockers. So maybe that could spark some interest because that's what the singles are supposed to do. They're supposed to spark interest for the album. I think personally, if they wasn't going to go the route with "I Can't Stop the Rain," I think they should have done the song that they opened the album with. I think they should have done "I'm Gonna Love You"
That's my second choice. Yeah.
because it's a rocker. It's got
It's a
some
great
guitars
song.
in it, and we'll talk about the songs individually as we go
And
down through.
that's actually the song that I wish that Kiss would have played in concert with him in '79.
Yeah,
It would have been great.
right, right. Because I think just the plain and simple fact that they released Kiss was known as a hard rock band at this time, even though they had Beth and they had a lot of female. You have to remember Beth brought a lot of females to
Yep.
the audience. The kids weren't quite there yet. The kids mostly came as a result of, like I did. The kids came the way I did as a result of finding out about the band during a live two, during double platinum, during the solo albums. And that's where all the kids, so whenever Dynasty hit, that's when boom, that's when the kids 9, 10, 11 years, 8 and 8, even younger, 7, 8, 9, 10. I was 10 when I went to Dynasty, but that's when the young kids started. It was so I think that if they wasn't going to do that, they should have done "I'm Gonna Love You." I think it would have been a little bit of a rocker.
Yeah.
And here's what my thoughts was. It's like, okay, if they were going to do two singles, what I would have done is I would have done "I'm Gonna Love You," and on the B side, I would put "Easy Thing," a rocker and a soft song.
Yeah.
And then for the second single, I would have flipped it. I would have done "I Can't Stop the Rain" with "Tossing and Turning" on the back. That's what I would have done If I was the A&R guy, that's what I would have done. So it's interesting to note that Peter did not play on Easy Thing, Rock Me Baby, or I Can't Stop the Rain. Alan Schwartzberg did, due to injuries that he maintained or he had during the car crash from this time.
So that's the weird thing. Think about that. So the songs that Peter did play drums on, when was that recorded? That had to been recorded before the accident. And the accident happened the day after the final wrap up for Phantom of the Park, which was May 28th or something. So
it's right at the end of May.
He recorded all the songs with his drums on it before May.
Right. Which typically you do lay down rhythm and, in a recording setting, they would lay down basic tracks. And a lot of times while they were laying down basic tracks, they'd lay down drums. So drums is usually one of the first things to get put down. And then they kind of build on top of that.
Drums and bass.
Drums and bass. And then they build on top of that. So because even though he probably had limited time, I'd say that, and they didn't shoot very long for Phantom of the Park. They were done in like 2 weeks. So if he started in April, he easily would have had time before they stopped to shoot Phantom mid-May. He would have had enough time to record all these drum tracks and maybe, but he didn't have the time to finish since he hurt his hand. Well, Easy Thing don't have drums. It just has percussion. And somebody else plays that. No, it does have some drums. It does. I'm thinking about Kiss the Girl. I'm thinking about Kiss the Girl Goodbye. But Easy Thing has some drums. Not a whole lot of drums. Rock Me Baby is probably the biggest one that has drums in it. And I Can't Stop the Rain. And the funny thing is about those three songs, when it comes to I Can't Stop the Rain and Rock Me Baby, if you listen to the drums knowing that that's not Peter, you start picking out little things that lets you can tell it's not Peter.
It's subtle because I think they made Schwartzberg kind of drum like him,
right?
Although they gave him credits on the back, so they weren't kind of trying to hide it at all.
Right, they weren't really trying to hide it. No, because that's another thing I noted is he had 24 musicians and singers on his album. So only beaten only by Gene, who had everybody on his album.
And Lassie.
And Lassie. And so I kind of going into this, I wrote down what I call a scorecard. So I wanted to look at what Peter did so we can think what will we do different. So he had rock. It's funny. His what I'd called rockers and what I called easy rock. He split 5 and 5. So his rockers, he had I'm Gonna Love You, Tossing and Turning. That's kind of Sugar Papa Likes, Rock Me Baby, Hooked on Rock and Roll. So he had 5 rockers. And then easy rock, he had You Matter to Me, Don't You Let Me Down, Easy Thing, Kiss the Girl Goodbye, and I Can't Stop the Rain. So everybody talks about Peter's album being really soft. It's actually semi-soft. It's about half. Because he, now the rockers he has, they're not Paul rockers, and they're definitely not Ace rockers. But he does have some songs on here that rock, and maybe with a little bit of tweaking on the production. And some, some producers telling him, hey, let's not add this instrument here. Let's beef these instruments up here. They may have, on these particular songs, they could have possibly rocked even more. He has horns on his album. I'm Gonna Love You, Tossing and Turning, and Rock Me Baby. He has horns on those. He has solos other than guitar. He has You Matter to Me, has a key solo, and Tossing and Turning has a sax solo. And then he has keyboards. He has keyboards on You Matter to Me, Don't You Let Me Down. That's kind of Sugar Papa Likes, Easy Thing, Rock Me Baby, and I Can't Stop the Rain. And then he has strings or orchestra on Easy Thing and I Can't Stop the Rain. And the other big thing that I think he did wrong, and we'll get into these individual songs, but we're kind of laying down a blanket right now, is what I call the abundant background singers. There, too much is too much.
Yeah.
And so I think
It's
he had
almost every song except for the ballads, you know, and
Yeah.
and some of the ballads have background singers too. So
yeah.
it's every song. It's every song has a background singers.
I think his abundant background singers, where it was too much, was "I'm Gonna Love You." They're too much. "You Matter to Me." They're too much. "Tossing and Turning" they're too much. "Kind of Sugar Papa Likes." They're too much. "Easy Thing." They're too much. And "Rock Me Baby." They're too much. So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with having background singers, but and they had already established the female background singers that got what I call the gospel background singers with "Tomorrow and Tonight" off of Love Gun.
Mm-hmm.
They had already kind of established that, but even Ace used them, Gene
Yep.
used them, Paul
Yep.
used them. They
Yep.
all used them,
Yeah.
but Paul and Ace used them, I think, in a
Sparingly.
little more tactful way
Yeah.
than Gene and Peter did.
Yeah.
So I would have
Different
said,
songs.
"Hey, Peter, we don't need the whole group in here. Let's get a couple background singers in here, somebody backing you up, somebody singing under you, somebody singing above you, and let's call it a day." And he did that on some songs. All right. Is there anything else, just overall blanket, instead not pointing out a particular song yet, but is anything overall blanket that you would have done differently
Oh, yeah. I
on the
mean,
album?
you mentioned it already, the horns. If you think about it, what's the only instrument you haven't heard on a Kiss record up until Peter Criss's? It's horns. Well, yeah, there's horns and Beth, but nothing else. Not
Not
like
orchestra horns. These are
not
brass. This
orchestra
is a
horns.
brass section.
Right. And I think the horns is what alienated the album as much. I mean, that's what alienated it for people. It was like it just sounds too different. If you would have just kept the horns off, and just cranked up the guitar a little bit more, I think it would have been viewed a little bit more differently, and people would have liked it more. I think the horns really killed it, so I would have just ditched them totally.
Yeah. The big disadvantage that Peter had going for him is that Peter Criss is not a songwriter.
Yeah.
He has to have somebody to write with. In this case, Stan Pendridge. But Paul's a songwriter. Gene's a song factory. Gene writes more songs than he really knows what to do with. And Gene does a quantity over quality. That's why he usually has to end up patching together 3 or 4 songs to make one song.
Yeah.
Paul's kind of I've said it before, Paul's a song architect. It's a Paul Stanley construction. Paul is a song architect.
Yep.
He writes to write for quality. He does not write for quantity. And Ace was coming off of the mojo that he was in with Shock Me and with Rocket Ride, and he had all these songs that he was wanting to put on albums, and they weren't. Gene and Paul was telling him no, 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 and and he had his. Here's how I know Ace was just churning songs out, because he had these 2 great songs leading up to the solo album. And you got to remember, they weren't putting out. They were putting albums out within months of each other, not years of each other.
2 a year.
Yeah, and 2 a year. And so Ace had these 2 great songs. Then he had a solo album full of great songs. Then you turn around a year later and he puts 3 songs on Dynasty and like 3 songs on Unmasked. So he was just in this mojo where he was just writing songs, and they were just coming to him, good, bad, or ugly, or whatever. They were just coming to him. So the problem with Peter was Peter didn't have that. Peter didn't have anybody to write new songs for him. So the reason why Peter's album has an entirely different sound, even than Gene's, and sometimes Peter's albums is argued as being, I think the only reason that Peter's album is not argued as being worse than Gene's is because he's got I Can't Stop the Rain, which he didn't write at all.
No.
It's and so it's a Sean Delaney song.
Yep.
So, but still, he should have had, and I know Sean was working on Gene, and we all know the story. He wanted Sean, and Gene wanted Sean, so Gene got Sean. And I honestly think that Peter's album would have been a whole lot better had he got Sean Delaney instead of Gene getting him. It would have been a whole lot better. He probably would have wrote a lot more songs for Peter. They would have been songs that were more like I Can't Stop the Rain, An Easy Thing. They would have been more of those types of songs that were a little more modern rather than all these pre-Kiss songs from 1971 that all sound old. They sound old. Here it is at the late 70s, and these songs sound like they're coming out of the 60s. What's that one song? Rock Me Baby.
Oh, Rock Me Baby, yeah.
That song sounds like, and with you put the horns on it, it sounds like it was written in the 50s.
Although that was one that was written by Sean Delaney.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That was one that was written by Sean Delaney.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was just trying to make a song that fitted with what Peter was trying to do. Because Peter almost sounds like his album sounds like they should have been 45s in a jukebox back in the 50s, milkshake malt shop.
Yeah.
That's how his album sounds. And it
wouldn't have been a weird, I mean, if you were to time travel and put Peter Criss's Rock Me Baby in a 50s jukebox, I don't think anybody would blink.
They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have.
They'd be like,
it probably would have been a hit.
It probably would have.
All right, so let's get into these songs. Let's talk about these songs. So he started the album with, and we're going to ask you different questions as we're going along. So they started the album with I'm Gonna Love You. Do you think that's a good album opener?
Yes. I wouldn't have used it, but are we going to go through what we would do? Or
yeah, we'll go through what we would have done. Yeah.
Do you want to do that now, or?
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it whenever. We can do it as we go.
Yeah, this is how I would set it up. I'll just throw it out quickly. Side one, Hooked on Rock and Roll. I would start on that song. No horns. Again, no horns. Crank the guitars up and let Peter sing his ass off. And and he drums on that song too, I believe. Yeah. So
yes, he does.
I would have focused more. I would have been pushing Peter. I know. Well, this was before he was hurt, so I would have been pushing Peter a little bit more to play a little bit more, throw some more rolls in there, more fills. He didn't play with as much enthusiasm as he did on the Kiss albums, the songs he played on. So I started off with Hooked on Rock and Roll, You Matter to Me, same place. Rock Me Baby would be the third song. Don't You Let Me Down, same place. And here's where I made a crucial change. Hopefully I could do this. I don't know if there's any rules with this, but I took away the cover of Tossing and Turning and I threw Spotlights in as the closing on side one, which I thought they should have done that song. Side two, I'm Gonna Love You. Great opening track for side two. Then instead of, shifting gears and going into a ballad, I'm going to keep it rolling and throw on That's the Kind of Sugar Papa Likes. Kiss the Girl Goodbye, third track on the second side. Then Easy Thing and I Can't Stop the Rain. Two kind of basically three ballads in a row, but it works for me. That's how I would do it.
Yeah. Man, yeah, and I was going to ask, and I'm glad that you covered it. I meant to ask earlier. I was going to ask if you would have cut any track for a demo or a song, Peter covering a song from a previous Kiss album, because I have thoughts on that. So, and you did. You cut Tossing and Turning and put in Spotlights. Very interesting. Very interesting. So here's what I would have done, and then we'll talk about the tracks individually. I left I'm Gonna Love You exactly where it is because I like that it starts the album the way it does. I left You Matter to Me where it is. I even left Tossing and Turning where it is. I left Don't You Let Me Down where it is. And I replaced That's the Kind of Sugar Papa Likes. Because that's a song that's had to grow on me.
And the title is just too freaking long.
Yeah, it's had to grow on me a little bit. But what I would have done, and I think this would have increased his album sales, is I would have replaced That's the Kind of Sugar Papa Likes with an acoustic version, kind of a la Phantom of the Park, which would have come out right about the time that the solo albums
Love
did.
Beth.
I would have replaced it with an acoustic version of Beth and put a hype sticker on there, acoustic version of Beth.
That would have been, oh yeah, it would have sold. That would have sold good.
Would have sold. Would have sold real good.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what I would have done is I would have started, I think Easy Thing, I love Easy Thing, and we'll talk about that song individual in a little bit. But starting side 2 with it is kind of a letdown. It's it's kind of like a you want to kind of coming off Beth. Especially if I had Beth, I don't want to turn you flip the album and another slow song. So what I've done is I would have moved Hooked on Rock and Roll up, and I'll talk about how to change it in a little bit. And then I would have just pushed Easy Thing down. I would have Hooked on Rock and Roll, then Easy Thing, then Rock Me Baby, Kiss the Girl Goodbye, and then I Can't Stop the Rain. Would have closed the album. So just a couple little minor changes. But I would have gotten rid of That's Kind of Sugar Papa Likes, just because that one is the longest title ever.
Yeah.
And the only part, and I'll talk about what I like about that song whenever we get to it. But so this is what I would have done. Let's start with the tracks as the way they're laid out, and I'm going to talk about what I would have done differently. And even if I mention it, I want you, if it's something you would have done differently, I want you to say it too.
Okay.
And then we'll go back and forward. I'm Gonna Love You. I would have cut the horns. It's not necessary. I would have put in more guitars that could have been filled to give a fuller effect. The background vocals are there. I think they're fine on this song. And sometimes I feel like Peter's song suffers from what I call long run out, very much like Gene's does. It seems like both Gene and Peter, once they're done with their songs, the only thing they do is repeat until they fade out. And Gene and Peter both are guilty of repeating a chorus or a phrase like 8, 11 times. And it's like, come on, man, just fade out the song. So
yeah,
that's the changes I would have made to I'm Gonna Love You. I love that song as it is, but if I was going to try to improve it, that's what I would do. What about you?
I'm Gonna Love You. Yeah, same thing. Take out the horns, pump up the guitar. Actually, if I were to, if let's play that. If I were to open with that song like you did, I would have had like a pretty nice intro, a drum solo. Like you come in with like a drum solo because it's Peter's album. He's a drummer.
Right.
Open the album with kind of like a drum intro or something. I think that would have helped the song and the album kind of too. But yeah,
because you have that bass thing at the beginning of it, that doom, bam, bam, and it comes in with that strong solo, that strong guitar solo. So have just kind of like a little drum solo at the beginning, kind of like a la Eric Carr, King of the Mountain, or something. Just it's something at the beginning.
It's kind of cool how it's so sudden, but again, it just feels too sudden. Like you need something before that. But yeah, that's all I would do with it, and probably just increase the guitars. And let Peter sing his butt off,
Yeah, and he does sing his butt. That's one thing I can tell you. Peter, his vocals on this album, on every song, are on point. He has so much soul in his voice, especially on some of the slow songs. He gets me, man. I mean, he tears me up on something.
Believe that he's singing. Yeah, it's hard to believe he was singing with so much soul when he had all those injuries. I mean, he had cracked ribs, I believe, and his fingers are broken. I mean, but he did phenomenal on the
vocal. He's in a real, by the time he got around to laying down the vocals for these songs, he was in a bad way. I mean, he was in a real bad way. So what about moving on to track 2? I want to make a little note right quick too. We talked about Peter's voice. I love the way his drums sound on this album. His drums have a really cool sound. I love the way his snare sounds. You can tell sometimes he's got that real deep snare, and then sometimes he's got that pearl metal, that metal snare. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what he's playing on I'm Gonna Love You. I think he's playing that metal snare. Because I had one of those before. And
Does he
Martin,
play that
whenever
on Love Gun? Does he play that
I,
on the Love Gun album?
I
It
think he
sounds
does.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does. Sometimes you can just tell, like on the slower songs, he uses the deeper snare, like his deep, like a live two snare. And then sometimes I think he's using that 8-inch metal share set, like a steel or brass, or I'm not exactly sure what metal it was made out of. I think it might have been made out of stainless steel, but I
Mm.
just love the crispness of it.
Yeah.
Um, so track number 2, as it is on the album, "You Matter to Me." What would you have done there?
I would take off that crazy synthesizer. That sounds like it was a. You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like a $49 Casio keyboard from 1978 to me. I would take that out completely, no question. And what else would I do? I think that's really the only thing I would do. And instead of having that, I'd probably have some light guitar soloing, during it. Not anything heavy because it's a lighter song, but throw in some jazzy guitar soloing or something instead of the keyboard. That's what I would do.
My notes, I would not have the keyboard in this. And I'd add a little background rhythm, and play it, and I would added much more guitar work in the back. Maybe add an acoustic for a little bit of texture.
Yeah.
And just to give it a different texture and a different thickness and a different feel. And I would have found a way for whoever's playing the guitar to do whatever the keyboard does, either do that solo or do something different, because the melody itself is not bad. I just hate when you come off of a song, an opener like "I'm Gonna Love You," and then you get on the weedy 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 wee. I mean, it's just like I love "You Matter to Me" though. I love the
I think, yeah, if you had a clean electric guitar, a clean sounding electric guitar playing that. Yeah.
something different. But other than that, yeah, that's an instrument that Kiss had not really used either. They'd used piano, but they've not really used a synthesizer.
Not until
Um,
last.
yeah, and I understand that the solo albums was for experimenting, and they all did. Ace experimented, Paul experimented. Paul was already experimenting with the EBO on Love Gun. You can hear it during the chorus of Love Gun and during different parts where it's that little thing that you just put it on the string and
Yep.
it just vibrates the string, and you have to record each string separately. So if you're wanting to do a chord, you have to record all the notes for the chord. And I mean, Paul did that on his solo album. And so they all experimented in different ways. Ace experimented with different recording techniques and recorded in a mansion and experimented recording in different rooms and with tapestries
Mhm.
on the wall, with carpets on the wall, with the drums in the staircase, with the
I think
drums
he
not in.
used like probably 10 different guitars too.
Yeah. So they experimented so much. So I'm all for experimenting, but you have to do something that also is just at the end of the day, when you listen to the track, you go, man, that sounds good. And rather than listen to this and go, man, no, we need to change that. We need to try a different instrument, same melody, different instrument. All right. So far we're lining up with each other in the producer room here. Um, Tossing and Turning. What I would have done with Tossing and Turning, me personally, I love Tossing and Turning. It's one of my favorite songs on the album, even though it's a cover. I think Peter did a very good rendition of it. The original Tossing and Turning is a lot faster. He kind of slowed it down and gave it a groove, and the guitars are real good in the mix. And his drums, I think he's got that metal snare again. And I love this song. I think me and I've actually talked to you about like doing the little cover that we do, like we did with your
Yeah.
song. I would love to do this because
Yeah.
Peter's got some really cool feels. That feel he does later in the song when he goes, "The clock downstairs was striking 3," when he's doing it really loud. He has a cool little step. I mean, it's just a little simple, but he don't hit the same drum twice. So
No.
I love that little feel that he does. So I would have pushed the horn. I might have kept the horns in the mix because I think they kind of suit the song because of the period the original came from. But they would have been way back. They would have been way
Hmm.
back. And I would have not had the sax do the solo. It would have been a guitar because those guitars are they're
Yeah.
so chunky. I
Yeah.
would have had a chunky but melodic guitar solo. I think would work better. And I actually think the background singers, even with their do 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 do, I think they're on point because it fits the song. So if I was going to have strong, predominant background singers like they did with Tomorrow and Tonight, because they were predominant on that song too. So if I'd had some strong, predominant female background singers on any song on this album, it would have been tossing and turning just because I feel like it fit the song. So what about you? What would you have done?
Well, I left it off, remember?
Yeah.
Well,
If we decided to keep it, what
if
would
we
you have
decided
done?
to keep it, pretty much, I would go the same vein as you. I would just, I probably would keep the horns on that song, but definitely lower them because it does seem to need that. I mean, that's, I mean, and it's a cover too.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have definitely would have increased it. If you listen, I like to listen to the live version that they have on YouTube. You know, where Kiss plays along with them,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
Yeah.
Ace has a solo, and it's a pretty darn good solo. Not
Mm-hmm.
great, but it makes this. I prefer listening to that version. So if I was the
The Kiss version. Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
I would have done it more like they did. To be honest
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I wonder if now I'm not sure where in the 70s timeline they come about, but I was thinking saxophones, and I was like, okay, who else was using the saxophone? And this is 78, late 78, mid
Chicago,
78 when it was being recorded. So I know that Bob Seger had a saxophone player.
yeah,
Um, Bruce Springsteen had a saxophone player.
Clarence
So
Clemens, yeah.
so maybe I don't know when those albums came out around when Peter's albums came out, but maybe they were trying. Maybe Peter was thinking,
Yeah.
well, Bruce Springsteen and Bob Seger has a saxophone player. Maybe I can have a saxophone player too. So I don't know. Like I said, because it's not just that they had horns on the mix, but that a sax actually got a solo. And that's really the problem that I have with the song is I would have gave that solo to a guitar.
Yeah.
So all right, so the next track on the album as it is "Don't You Let Me Down." What about you on that one?
Mm. I would definitely. It just seems so. It's too soft. It's just. I know it's got that feel to it, and I know you wanted to go with that feel, but it just seems. You, I think you mentioned it one time. Doesn't it sound like Under the Boardwalk or some song?
Oh,
Or
no, doom, doom,
it's
doom,
yeah.
doom, doom, doom. Yep.
It's too. I don't know. I don't know whether I would just maybe strip it down totally and just make it a ballad. With maybe just acoustic guitars. I'm not sure if I'd go that route or if I would leave it the same. I mean, it's not bad the way it is.
Uh-huh.
It's something about it where it's not it doesn't scream I'm a single. It shouldn't have been released as a single, I don't
No,
think. It's a
no,
great song though, but
no.
not
Slap it on
single.
a B side if you want, but don't release
Yeah,
it as a single.
yeah.
Right. Um, my thoughts on "Don't You Let Me Down" is I would have started it a different way. I love this song, but I hate the way that it sounds like it starts like it's on the boardwalk. I would have tried to get a different way to start it. Maybe start with, and I would have brought in some acoustic guitars. The
Yeah.
keys in this aren't not bad. That's like that Roland type keyboard. It's not the synth. It's just those keyboards that sound crisp and
Yeah.
just airy.
And it's mixed
Um,
well too. It's not way up.
yeah, they're
It's
not
mixed.
way up. They're just kind of in there in the background. The background vocals, they're almost like an instrument. Those
Yeah.
oohs, they're almost like an instrument to this. But I would have maybe brought in, it does have some acoustic guitar in it, but I would have brought it up some more and maybe added in a nice Fender. Fenders have that nice, clean sound to them. Maybe
Mhm.
added a nice Fender in there somewhere. I don't know if contractually they had to play certain instruments or whatever, even on their solo albums. but I would have brought in something, and I wouldn't have started it with the bass drum or with the bass guitar. I'd have tried to find a different way to just get the song up and going.
Yeah.
This is one of my more favorite song on the album. Other than with Peter's vocals, I'd be hard pressed to change anything about it. His
No.
vocals are just so good, and when he hits that part where he says it sure took hard times to drag me down, the vocals and the vocal right there in his voice is just so pure. And it's almost like he was feeling some of these songs because he was starting to have a strained relationship with his wife. He was having a strained relationship with the band.
I've always said, although Peter didn't write a lot of lyrics, he had this grasp on a song. He knew how to deliver a song vocally, even more so than Paul. And I know a lot of people are like, no. I'm like, Peter can get into a song. And yeah, maybe it takes him a few takes. Maybe he gets screwed up and he has to take, 4 or 5 takes to get it. But man, when he gets a good take, it's freaking awesome. And he feels it. It's like you can feel the emotion in it, So yeah.
And his voice has a texture to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we love about Peter's voice so much, is it has a texture to it. Even if the texture is a little bit like sandpaper, it's sandpaper and velvety at the same time. And that's one of the things why I think Paul has a great voice, and I agree with you. I think Paul has a great voice, but you don't, and I'm not saying you've never heard Paul sing with emotion, but you hear Peter sing with emotion a lot more than you do on his solo album than you do any of the other solo albums. Most of the emotion in the voice is coming off of Peter's album. Let's see. And I said on this the only thing that I might have reworked is I would have tried to do something different, because once he gets done, once again, all he does is just repeats falling down, 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 falling down, down, down. And it's just, okay, man. Okay. And one thing I noted on this is, okay, if they're trying to do that to extend the song, there's no solo on this song. Yeah. So try to find a way to work in a solo, even if it's an acoustic solo or maybe a little bit of an interlude, just do something. But it's just basically,
I wouldn't even have minded like a piano solo, like a regular acoustic piano doing a little fill in the middle would be good.
Exactly. Yeah, just something to kind of change it up a little bit. All right. So the next song, that's the kind of sugar Papa likes. So what would you have done with this?
Well, this song, for one thing, I mean, you can't change the title. I mean, oh, maybe you could, because I wrote that down. Do you change the title? And I thought about it, and I'm like, maybe you should. Maybe there's something that he sings in the verse that you could change it to, or I mean, there's some songs that don't even say the name of the song in the song. I just think it's just ridiculous title. The song itself is great. I think I like it.
Could name it "Drive Me Crazy."
Yeah, because he says that at the end and
they
stuff.
Say it a lot.
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
because said drive. And actually, it's funny how it's like me and you were in each other's heads, and we didn't talk about this. No, that's one of the things. That was one of the things I suggested. Was I hate the name of this song. It's such a mouthful, and it's cringy too.
With that song, I remember. I was.
It's this song on the back of the album.
Well, when I was in school, I was, probably there was only 2 of us kids, and I was in a small class, but there was only 2 of us that liked Kiss, and everybody else liked Motley Crue, whatever was popular at the time. And I had the Peter Criss solo album one day in school, and this one guy looks at it, he's like, "That's the kind of sugar Papa likes. What the fuck is that?" I'm like, I don't know.
I know. And you read it and that's the same. That's how I read it too. I look at that man and I'm like, that's the kind of sugar Papa likes.
Other than that, I mean, I would there's keyboard in it. I think there is. I could be wrong, but I think there's keyboard in
Yep,
there.
a little bit of that keyboard. Yeah,
I would have took
yep.
that out. I would have took that out completely. And
Yeah, because it's way back.
yeah, it's way back, but I would have probably took it out. But other than that, and the solo in there, the guitar solo, I forget who did that. But it was really good. It
Great
was
solo.
one of the best solos on that album. I can't remember the guy's name.
Great solo. I would have changed the song title to "Drive Me Crazy." And because we have the song "Rock and Roll All Night," you drive us wild, we'll drive you crazy. So I would have named it "Drive Me Crazy." What I've always said in the past, I'm not a real big fan of this song. This song's kind of grown on me as years in the recent years has passed. I don't know. It's just I've never really liked the chords of this song, and I know I'm getting in the weeds.
It's in a
But
weird key too. If you
yeah,
ever,
and it's just
in a
this,
weird
and
key.
it sounds like it's diminished, and the keys in it almost sound like it should be a spooky song. It's
Yeah,
it's just got like these weird chord progression to it, and like you said, a weird key.
it's in a weird key.
But I love how when it starts, I like that, and that is
Yeah,
definitely
it's
that
good, building up. Yeah.
metal snare. Because when he's hitting it there at the very end, you can just hear the metal ringing,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just comes in and he's just bashing on the hi hat, and then when they go into some of his best drumming, believe it or not, not feel wise, not rhythm, not feel wise and anything, but some of his best drumming is on this song. Because if you listen, whenever they go into "Cause You're the Kind of Sugar Papa," he breaks into a shuffle. That he breaks it kind of like what he does in his drum solo off of 100,000 Years. It's that that's what he's doing. He's doing that shuffle, a slowed down version of the same shuffle he does in Detroit Rock City. So he's doing that shuffle. And I love that. It's got a great guitar solo. I would have kept it. I would have brought the rhythm guitars up in the mix and maybe added some more. The background singers are okay during the song, but they get overbearing during the fade out because they start that whole "drive me crazy," and Peter's just "that's your baby." He's just yelling nonsense and all this stuff because the song just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
So I would have maybe I would have doubled the guitar solo. And anytime you increase the length of something, you can decrease the length somewhere else. So I would have maybe doubled the guitar solo, and there's somewhere else I would have another song I'd do that on too, and then maybe trying to trim some of that end. Definitely change the name.
Yeah.
Easy Thing. What I've got for Easy Thing is one of the great songs on this album. I would not started side 2 with this song though. I love the progression of the song from the acoustic to start, then adding in the strings and then the guitar and then the drums. Just that build up of the dynamics. Peter sounds so great and full of emotion in this song. Man, when he breaks into that, "Love is so hard." Oh, and I know I'm cracking all everything, but man, whenever he breaks into that, once it gets built up, "Do you really feel that love?" And then he does, and when he's saying the word "so," "love is so hard," he's just, and then he kind of, "love is so hard to find." He's just sounds so good. There's not really a solo in this, but what the solo is in there, it kind of works. It kind of comes in that, it's kind of short.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember
but,
that.
Even as the song progresses and more guitar comes in and they add the strings, it still works. I would have not added the background singers at the end. I think the background singers at the end of this song are totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. It's not needed. It takes away from the song. I would have just had Pete do what he did and made it a mostly instrumental outro with Peter adding in "such an easy things," every once in a while. But the "love so easy, love so easy." I hate that background. I hate the background singers in this song.
Yeah.
They ruin it for me. But that's what I would have done with "Easy Thing." What would you have done?
Same vein as you. I would definitely not have it open side 2.
Right.
Um,
You
I
stuck
would
it
have,
at,
I stuck that at the second from the last song, right before I Can't Stop the Rain.
oh yeah, yeah. Move, you just shift it down. Right.
Yeah. That's what I would do with it in position. Instrumentation, I would pretty much leave that alone. I can't. I would stay in that same vein. And
Mm-hmm.
the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that I have one little quim with it is Peter has an off key vocal right in the first verse. You can hear it if you. It's not even like you can miss it if you just listen for it. And it's like it always bothers me. Like, oh my God, what were you like ready to get out of there or something? Why wouldn't you do one more take? I mean, he just missed
What
it
part?
there
What
really
part
quick.
is it? What part is it? See if I
Uh,
know which part it is.
it's in the very first verse. The love is so hard, love is so hard to find. It's right in there. You'd have to listen to it. I'd have to listen
Okay.
to it again. But there's one
Is
note
it the
that's
very
like,
first
oh,
thing? Is it the very first time he says love is so hard to find?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think it might be that.
Yeah. I've noticed too that Peter has a tendency when
Yeah,
Peter is off, he has a tendency to go flat rather than going
it's
sharp.
flat. It's flat.
He goes flat.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, same instrumentation. I would just not have it open side 2. Um, maybe I would probably throw some acoustic guitar solo in
Hmm.
that too, though.
Hmm.
It's a little bit, yeah. It feels like it's missing
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Um, but I love the orchestration. I love the build up. Um,
Oh
it's
yeah,
a great song.
the build up on that song is amazing.
I might have not have started off so quiet. You know, when you put the needle down,
Oh
you
yeah,
have to crank it up. So it's like, is the record going? Because it's like
yeah. I think they started it off too quiet. I think they
too
should have
quiet,
started it
way
off.
too quiet.
It should have been it maybe a 12 string and higher
Hmm.
up in the mix.
Yeah,
Like you didn't
yeah,
have to start off that quiet.
yeah. It's almost like a whisper starting.
Yeah,
So
because when you're going down the road listening to it, even if I turn my radio up over the road noise, you can still barely hear it.
yeah, you can't hear it until like 20 seconds in.
Right.
So
All right. So the next track, get your take on this first, Rock Me Baby.
I love the song. I think definitely should have been on the B side of the single. I would have put that song on there. Um, I wouldn't have done anything other than take the horns off again. I would have took the horns off completely, threw up the guitars, have a great guitar solo, which I think there was a pretty decent one in
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just expand it on it, made it longer, made it more kick-ass, and just crank the vocals a little bit more too. Because you can't. Peter's a little bit low in the mix on that, but he's still good. And I
Mm-hmm.
would have softened the background vocals, or maybe I wouldn't have taken them off because I kind of like them, but I would have definitely eased them back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I think it's a great song and an overlooked song. A lot of people overlook that one.
Mm-hmm. I think you hacked my email and you've been looking at my notes. Um, Rock Me Baby, I would have cut all the horns from this and made it mostly a honky tonk song, trading between the piano and the guitars because I love
I love the piano.
that and it sounds so good. And then it gets like 3 bars in, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god, man! It's like here comes the horns again.
You know,
Um,
Richard T. Bear is the pianist that
right.
played on that song, and I
Yeah.
interviewed him. He's on, if you want to check it out, it's on my channel, guys.
Oh
But
yeah, definitely.
he is phenomenal player, and he played on "I Can't Stop the Rain." All those little fills at the end, do 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 do.
Yeah.
All that stuff made that song. I
Oh
told
yeah.
him, your piano playing made "I Can't Stop the Rain."
Yeah.
But I
I'll
digress.
try to find the link to that video and I'll put it at the end of this video.
Oh, I
When
appreciate
my
that.
videos pop up, I'll try to put that if YouTube will let me attach it. I'll put it there so people can go check that out. So yeah, I would have cut the horns, made it mostly a honky tonk song because it has that sound. I would have toned down the background singers, maybe only used male background vocals Because think about it, if instead of rock me, baby, if it had come on and rock me till I'm ready to rock me, baby, kind of like
Yeah,
Doobie Brothers,
yeah.
layered background male vocals. I would have done that. Um, deep into this album, I got the deep into the album, the female gospel sounding singers are getting a little old. I think it's a great guitar solo. Too short. I would have doubled it or tripled it to make it not seem like Peter is just the meat on this lyrics of this song is not very meaty. So it just seems like Peter's left saying a lot, going, "Baby, who you been? X. Since your man's gone." He just repeats that over and over towards the end. So I would have maybe extended the solo and then lengthened the outro, or extend the solo, shorten the outro. All right, so man, we wouldn't have been fighting in the producer studio at all.
We could have been dual producers on this.
Yeah, we would have been fine on this. So the next one, "Kiss the Girl Goodbye." I love that it's got "Kiss" in the title, and it even on the back of the album, it's even written in the Kiss font.
Yeah,
I love that. "Kiss Girl." I've got this song is just about as perfect as far as a slow song gets on this album. It's mostly acoustic, mostly Peter's vocals, a little percussion. I would have had a nice longer. I would have added a longer solo. It has a longer solo to it, but I would have maybe tried to extend it a little bit. The background vocals of Peter and Sean Delaney, who's uncredited, are great. Not much I would have changed about this one. I love this song. I love "Kiss the Girl Goodbye." It's one of those songs that I really didn't get into in the beginning because there is no rhythm to it. It's just drum. It's just percussion. But I love you get that hi-hat every once in a while. "Even love you more." I love that.
yeah.
But Peter sounds so good in this, getting up in that "we've been apart so many times before." You can tell he's reaching for this. I mean, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
probably the
That's
song that he's probably challenging himself the most on this song because it is so toned down.
It's if you notice, it's one of the few Peter Criss songs that he doesn't have that that rasp. He's
Mhm,
got more of a clean voice
mhm,
when he's singing, and he sounds great.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'll let you finish on that.
Oh no, but that's just what I mean, that's what I would have done. I mean, I would have this song. I wouldn't have had to mess with this song too much. It's one of the songs I think that they came very close to nailing
Yeah,
what they were going for. I think they nailed it.
yep.
And I
Yeah.
honestly think this is kind of what they was like, hey, this could possibly be Beth,
The next Beth.
the
Yep.
next Beth, because it's, hey Beth, I never came home and you broke up with me, so now I'm gonna have to kiss the girl goodbye.
What's funny about that song is I had Lydia on my channel just a little while ago, a couple months ago, and she mentioned that she remembers that Peter said, "Hey, I wrote a song for you," and he said it was "Kiss the Girl Goodbye." It was supposedly for her, even though I don't think he wrote any of the lyrics of it. I'm not sure on that one,
Mm-mm.
but I love the song. I wouldn't have done anything differently, except I think I probably would have put a little bit of a acoustic piano along with
Mhm.
the guitar, and that's about
Yeah,
it.
just a little more texture.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, so the next song, "Hooked on Rock and Roll." What's your thoughts?
It's a. Hmm. I don't like the way it opens at all. I don't like the sound. I think this is one of those songs that did not need that honky tonk guitar. It could have used maybe a little bit of that, but it needs more straightforward rock, like rock and roll,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
Chuck Berry sounding stuff. Not that loose guitar that he's got in there. I probably would have. Oh, I have this as my opening track,
Mm-hmm.
And this is the track that I think if I opened with this on side one, he would have a pretty probably like a 10-second drum intro into Hooked
Mm-hmm.
on Rock and Roll. That's where I would put that little drum intro into. And other than that, I'd leave it alone. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good song.
Okay. I've got Hooked on Rock and Roll. This song has great examples of how things could have been done on other songs. The guitars are rocking in the mix. I would have changed the sound of the guitar, the style of the guitar slightly. So we kind of are along with each other. There are horns, but they're adding to the song, not carrying the song. And the guitar solo rips, but it could be longer. And the background vocals are mostly male, and they are great. The style of the background vocal, I think, could have been used more overall the whole album. The way the male background vocals sound on this, I think all except for Tossing and Turning, which I think kind of is the Tomorrow and Tonight sound background vocals of this Peter could have had on his album. I think that could have stayed female background vocals, but I think all the other background vocals could have been just either him and one other person, like him and Sean Delaney, which I know Sean, even though he's not credited, he has said that he sang a lot of background vocals with Peter and sometimes sang along with Peter.
He
on
sang
this
along
album.
with I Can't Stop the Rain.
Yeah.
You can't hear it, but it's there. I bet you
Yeah.
if you were to crank it, you could probably hear it though.
Yeah. So he sang along with him on a lot of stuff. And so I think if we would have just had more of these male background vocals, yeah, I think Hooked on Rock and Roll is great. Not a whole lot I would have changed about it. Like I said, I love that solo. And I think sometimes the solo ends a little bit too early. And I wish the style of that solo was the style of the guitar solo, like you talked about. You don't like it, kind of starts with a little solo, right? It just kind of kicks in and starts in that with that.
Yeah.
Why not do, like you said, start with some kind of drum intro and then
Yeah.
kick into a little mini solo at the beginning of the song that sounds like the solo towards the end of the song. Just a blistering little rock solo rather than a rockabilly honky tonk thing at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have those little guitar trills, those all the way through it, and I'm just like, why not just have a good crunchy riff going, like just have a good rockin' riff going.
That's exactly what I would have done. All
right, and then the last song. And then we'll talk about Spotlights. I know a lot of people haven't heard Spotlights. You can go online and look up. You can try to find it. But I Can't Stop the Rain, the final track on the album, I think it was very planned to put I Can't Stop the Rain as the final track. Honestly, I think that they knew that fans were going to like I Can't Stop the Rain. But I've got into my notes. I love this song for the longest. It was my favorite, hands down. Lately, it has more competition from songs like Toss and Turn and Easy Thing, Kiss the Girl, Don't You Let Me Down. But I love the dynamics of the song. The dynamics of this song are brilliant, and how they bring in the piano, like you talk about, and bring in the orchestra, like you talk about. It's got the funny little perfect beginning that we always like to imitate. And
this is New York.
This is New York, yo. And then you hear the little laugh. I used to always think that was so cool that you heard Peter say that, and then a little laugh after it. And it's like, what's the story behind that? How did that get stuck onto is he was just sitting there and getting ready to record, and they just happened to have the tape going, and he was replying
I think he wanted it to sound like a subway in New York, like a subway station, like the Echo. I think that's what I heard.
Okay. Well, I mean, it does. I mean, the echo on it, you hear that at the very beginning, it does sound like he's in a very large room. So they got that right. I Can't Stop the Rain is probably one of his best vocal performances. We can't say drum performances because it's not him. But it's probably one of his best vocal performances. And like you said, Sean Delaney singing along with him in some places. There's not much I would change about this song. Because I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to change anything at all. Really,
Mm-hmm.
really, I wouldn't change anything. This is the one song I wouldn't change anything on.
Yeah.
So it's easy. This one's easy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything.
So spotlights. So for those who may not know, and I can't play a clip of it because my gosh, I'm just now getting ready to have a strike fall off,
Oh,
and I'll be down to just one strike.
Okay.
Describe spotlights. Tell a little about the story about it and why you would have picked it to go on this album.
Well, if you look it up, it's easy to look up. You just type in Peter Criss spotlights, and I think it comes up. But there's a video, there's a video, but the audio is really bad with Peter actually singing it. Sean Delaney, he had a 1979 album called Highway, I believe, and it's on there. So if you want to listen to it, just check that out. Do I like Sean Delaney's version of it? Not necessarily. Not really. I think Peter would have done so much better with it. It needed a raspy voice. And I mean, the whole story of the song, it's basically, spotlights and lonely lights or lonely nights.
Spotlights and lonely nights. Right.
It's basically about, it was kind of depressing, all I do is, I'm up here in the spotlights and, afterwards it's lonely. And I guess Casablanca didn't really want that track on the album because of that. Like they thought it's too much of a downer. And I thought that was really dumb to leave that off because of that reason. I think the lyrics are phenomenal by Sean Delaney, and it's got a good melody. I just don't really like Sean Delaney's version of it. I just wish it would always have been. It should have been on Peter's record.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would have liked to hear what Peter could have done with it.
Yeah.
All right. So, everybody, that is what we would have done with Peter Criss's album to make it better, to fix it, to resurrect it. Some people said, call it the Kiss album's resurrected. This is what we would have done to fix it, to make it better. And some people said, some smart Alex out there, ooh, look at that. Woo! Is that sealed?
I opened it.
Oh, okay.
I think you told me to open it because I think I posted on Instagram, this is sealed. And I think someone said, crack it open, it's got to breathe. That might have been AJ that said it.
Might have been AJ that said that.
Yeah. So I had to.
I will never tell you to open something if you want to keep it closed. I've got a bunch of stuff behind me still sealed. But since you have the 8-track player, then yeah, it probably would have made sense to open it. I've started collecting 8-tracks, and I don't even have an 8-track player yet. I'm getting ready to start collecting 8-tracks and cassettes and CDs hard again, because I've got just about all the vinyl I want to get. I got my eyes out for some original stuff. I've got some placeholders back there, and I've got my eye out for some 2014 stuff, the 2014 180 gram re-releases that I don't have. But other than that, I'm going to start looking at cassettes and 8-tracks and CDs.
They're all cool rabbit holes to go down, and there's just so much stuff to get into. You spend your whole life trying to get everything, which is the cool thing about being a Kiss fan.
There's a lot.
You'll never run out of stuff.
Never run out of stuff to collect. I don't know what Kiss album I'm going to do yet. I think the next one that scored real low on my original thing was Gene Simmons. So why don't we just do Gene next? I mean, why not? So
it makes sense.
So I'll be back. This series will be back next month, in the month of August. We'll be back next month to see what we can do to fix Gene Simmons' solo album. And there goes my dogs. So that means it's time to go. Time to go walk the dogs. So, John, thank you so much for hanging out. I'll have you back in another one real soon. It's been too long. We won't make it be too long until the next one. So as we're going up through these albums, I'm sure you'll probably want to jump in on another one.
I'll Instagram you.
Yeah. It sounds real good. All right. So everybody, go check John out on Instagram. Check him out on YouTube. The links are going to be down in the description. And at the end of this video, you will see the link where you can go to and watch his video.
Richard T. Bear. He played 3 piano tracks on Peter Criss. And yeah, also check out Lydia Criss, who I think was the last video I put up.
Okay.
Cool stuff.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to get out of here, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.